Kia ora koutou. I open this meeting of the Risk Insurance Committee. Are there any declarations of interest? Any apologies, sorry? No apologies?
Yeah, Finch, she should be on it, shouldn't she?
Councillor Finch, apology.
I'll move that.
Thank you, Brian. Seconded, Bruce B. Those in favour? Those against? Carried. Declarations of interest? Urgent business? Anyone in the public forum? Right. That takes us to the minutes. Item 1 on the agenda, the minutes of the last
Mr. Chairman,
meeting. Yes.
just that resolution.
Oh, sorry. The agenda order. Thank you. See. Matter of item 4. I recommend that we move that into public excluded, to the discussion on that, public excluded.
So sorry,
Yep.
Mr. Chairman, the resolution, all you're after is that the item 4 be moved after item 10.
Item 4 to be moved after item 10. In the public excluded.
No, because
I don't
within
need
that item there'll be a resolution to move to public excluded.
Right, cool. Okay, thank you. Right, with that correction, I move that. Seconded, Bruce B. Thank you. Those in favour? Those against? Carried. Bruce B. twice. Right, that takes us to the minutes of our last meeting on the 23rd of November.
Happy to move.
So John, seconded. Michelle, those in favour?
Aye.
Those against? Carried. Financial policy review report has been handed out. Sharon, you?
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chairman. The original intention was to get all the policies sent out to you prior to today, but it's taken quite a bit of reviewing them and it's quite a quantum of reading. So the report I've just handed out today is listing the policies that, and our approach is going to be to distribute them to you today and to seek any feedback you may have by close of business on the 7th of February so that they can go on the agenda for council to adopt as part of the consultation package on the 15th. And included in the background information is what we're proposing. There's currently not a huge amount of change to many, but just note that the investment and liability management policy and the treasury management policy have been reviewed both by Stephen and by Miles O'Connor from Bancorp for the today, and there has been some amendments made to that. The treasury management policy, one of the amendments that we did make that is significant enough to mention is that daily limit that Steve or myself can approve for borrowing. It was relatively low, and if we have a whole lot of contracts to pay and need to borrow money for it, we're going to breach that limit. So that's just been upped. So just ask that you receive that report, well, these policies when they come out. Thank you.
Thank you, Bruce G. And seconded.
Can I just ask a question, Sharon? What's the process like if there's an issue that we have or something? Are we having a meeting that we can raise these at? There is a meeting in the future, because you gave a date, and I'm thinking, have we got a meeting before then?
Through you, Mr. Chair, you would get back to me with any feedback, and that would be discussed at the council meeting on the 15th.
Right, so there is a council meeting,
Yes.
a structured meeting to do it.
Yes, so it's just the position that we're in, Mr. Chairman, obviously with all the changes that occurred and what we're trying to do and the timing. The same thing you'll notice has happened with the activity management plans. We don't want to bury you in paper at meetings, and so the process for that has just gone out. We're feeding you those plans and then saying, please provide the feedback, and we'll get them in enough time to be able to include them in the 15th of Feb. The intention is that 15th of Feb meeting is purely, relatively simple because you've had that opportunity and you've seen some of these previously, and some of these financial ones here aren't actually any major changes of any sort, but it just means that we get our feedback and the comments and all that from you through the process, and we don't hold up meeting time for it. And at the end of the day, we do need to meet the deadlines for your approvals, so that's why we're following these processes for it. We were mindful that no point dropping all these policies on you last night. That wasn't going to work, so this is why we're doing it this way. We have to move everything towards decision making on the 15th. This is the only way we can think of to support that and actually make it manageable for you and us.
I have a mover and seconder. All those in favour? Those against, carried. And that takes us to page 18, the status progress report. Dr. Craig, Christina.
Kia ora koutou katoa. So in 2021, we had PwC review our risk profile, and at that time we added the risk failure to give effect to Te Tiriti and build successful iwi mana whenua partnerships. This risk sits at number 12 of 13 of our high and critical risk profile. In 2022, we started conversations with iwi consultancies, Okaha and Te Ao Marama, about engaging in partnership agreements. The feedback was that we have a few steps to take before we can reach that level, and they are detailed in my report. Last year in 23, I held 6 hui across the year to start forming relationships at an operational level with those consultancies, which have helped us. The point is to build relationships so we can have the support to be able to meet our statutory obligations. My goal this year is to offer training so that we understand what our obligations are, and so staff know why we have them. I'm excited for what this year has to bring and the support that we have from staff. The steps we are taking will help us manage and reduce the risks that is presented on page 20. So happy to open up.
I suppose, Mr. Chairman, just to add, whilst you mentioned staff, Christina, there is a clear connection between elected members on this program as well, and it's not an exclusionary process where it's not including elected members. It does include elected members as we're working way through them.
Right.
Good, Christina. Well done. Thank you. I think it's timely that this is coming to us, and I would encourage the political arm to wholeheartedly support any endeavours to strengthen the relationship, because the relationship we have is not a casual one that might be from a member of the public. We have statutory privileges. I know that Councillor Volwela has been active over the years, and it's part of my privilege / responsibility under the mana on mana relationship for the likes of Te Ao Marama, Te Rupateo, next week at Waitangi. There is an elevated level of relationship that's more structured, and I think that the onus is on the council to do everything through understanding to gain that strength of relationship, because in all honesty, there have been times where we've been faced with the cultural challenges, and I'll say from me personally, I haven't known the exact steps and pathways to take. I don't. And so that's a knowledge-backed thing. So thank you, Christina, for doing it. I know that this afternoon, in light of the present challenges that the relationship faces, that we will be putting a late item to council in the hope of presenting to the Otago Southland Mayoral Forum next week, because that too is a responsibility, and I want to make it clear, especially to the young councillors, that the relationship that a council as an organisation has is not a casual relationship. It's a structured and legal obligation and a privilege. So good timing. I'm fully in support of what you're trying to do.
Alison?
I probably endorse a wee bit of what Brian's saying. I actually would like to say congratulations. I think it's great for staff, but I actually think it's equally important for all councillors, and I would like to see that as perhaps part of our induction process as well. And I mean, obviously, why wait for 18 months for an induction process? It's something that all councillors, I believe, as part of their governance role, should be doing a basic induction process. So, yeah, that would be my recommendation.
John?
Thank you, Mr Chair, and thanks for the report, Christina. You talk about securing some funding in the long-term plan. Do you know what the cost would be?
How much have we put in? Have we put? Yes, it's only, at the moment, it's not significant. It's, is it 20,000 per annum? Yeah, for Ōkaha and Te Ao Marama. We've always had funding. We've always had funding for that. That's, and to be fair, Mr. Chairman, is that's probably only the entry level support. And as we further develop things, other councils are far more advanced than we are in terms of partnerships and resourcing required to support the partnerships. So this is only stage one of probably what we're currently already delivering anyway. And as we work our way through it, we'll know more of what the financial cost will be as partnership evolves.
John?
Yeah, well done, Christina. You mentioned you attended 6 hui and leading up to this. Like, so who were the huis with and how did you find them? Was it quite rewarding?
I've pushed my way into meeting with Te Ao Marama and Ōkaha, and so this is where a service level agreement is. I'm trying to get to that service level agreement with them because it takes a lot of their time. I've met 6 times with them and they're not getting paid for it, and they're giving me a lot of their information. I'm implementing it here, and they're doing it out of the goodness of their own heart, sort of thing. So I'm finding them really beneficial, and we've been able to highlight some things that we need to be doing better here. So for example, we've been sending them updates about things that they want to know with water quality, or our consents processes have improved, and we have assigned a staff member in the planning team to be their go-to person, so that when there are any planning questions, that they can talk to that person directly and get the answers that they need. So building those relationships are really important. Yeah.
And they're quite subjective to it. They like the idea.
These are the steps that we've had to take without just jumping straight into partnership. So if they can see that we are committed and genuine and willing and have consistency, showing up 6 times across the year shows that to them. So it just is helping build the relationship, which is really important for everybody, but in Te Ao Māori as well. Really important.
Okay, and do you have to go to them? Like, do you fly up north or do they got regional offices?
So Ōkaha is based in Dunedin. They represent Runanga closer to them, and then we have Te Ao Marama. They represent more south, and so they're in Invercargill. Yes, face to face is better, so I have been travelling up there. This year, when we introduce our service level agreement, we will to switch it up. So we'll do some online and then some face-to-face.
Oh, well, congratulations on making the effort and building those relationships on behalf of the council. It's really good stuff. So an important move going forward. So well done.
Mr. Chairman, just to add to that, it was an interesting point, isn't it, Christina, that we talk about partnerships, but it's quite interesting that we can't just say, hey, let's start a partnership discussion tomorrow with Runanga and with Ōkaha and Te Ao Marama. There's an expectation that council actually goes down a particular pathway to, improve its cultural understanding and its awareness, and doing these sort of things to get to a point where, partnership discussions can actually begin. So, yeah, that was a bit of an interesting one where, we talk about partnerships, but actually there's work to be done internally with ourselves and all that before we can start progressing in that partnership approach. And that was quite interesting.
I suppose the key component though is that we've made the start of the journey. So that's a great thing. Everything takes time.
I think, like, for a number of years, we've been on the journey, like Councillor Volwela and staff, and over the years, spasmodically, myself have gone to the meetings, but it's really good that it's been enhanced and more formal.
Alison?
Can I just ask, and I might be wrong, can I ask a question about our local Runanga and Ruth Wiley? Do they fit into this process? Are they being consulted with?
Yes, I make sure that we consult with them as well. So they are included, and we have Ruth Wiley supporting us with some tours. So I always do make the effort to call Ruth and whānau when required. But it's Ōkaha and Te Ao Marama who have that technical, who can give us a technical support.
I understand that, but it's just, I kind of see it as important that we also include it.
Yes,
Yeah,
and we
that's-
remember that we always use them for our welcoming when we, so that's that whānau,
I think it should be noted that, just so that the sort of the structured relationship that it is, that the mana and mana relationships strictly with signatories to the treaty.
Okay.
All right. Thank you, Christina.
Thank you.
Can I move on a second, please?
We're going to move.
Thank you, John. Thank you, Jock. Those in favour? Against, carried.
Hold on, yeah, we better pull that one down.
Yeah.
Second of May.
Just,
Sorry, John.
yeah, thank you, Michelle.
It's
Executive.
ordinance.
Those in favour? Aye. Those against, carried. That takes us to page 23 and the risk assurance work plan report. Sharon.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this is just showing what we've achieved since last time and things that have changed with it. So we have the Deloitte engagement letter. We still don't have a fee or a letter or anything, and that's because the OAG is going to be speaking with CEs. They're going to make appointments to speak with CEs about the process around how they set the fees. So hopefully we get that before audit starts. Category A reporting, we've moved to the next meeting because we just haven't completed that yet. And we've also moved the conflicts of interest register update because we haven't received them all back signed. So if yours wasn't signed, hopefully you found one on your desk to have a look at for us. Other than that, I'll take any questions if there are any.
Right.
Yes, on Monday night's meeting at Torre Mathematics Society, and in a different way at the water scan yesterday, it's becoming increasingly apparent, definitely in Torre Mouth, that so on page 25 with the percentage of service requests that actually got the feedback. There's a friction in the public now that's coming back to us constantly about, I've put a service request in, I'm not getting the feedback. So, and it is reflected in those figures that, 65% even is still 35% that wasn't contacted. So I'm just noting that we are certainly feeling that it's becoming more apparent in the public. And then Sharon, can I ask on page 20?
You're on the next report. I just waited till you finished that.
We're page 23 and 4.
My apologies. 23 to 25.
Put your ribs back.
Just as in addition to the audit officer running a regular training schedule for risk and assurance shares, and we have one of those meetings on Friday where they're going to talk to us about what's happening with their long-term plans, and no doubt the engagement letters that everyone is missing. Right, can I move on second, please? Thank you. Alison, thank you.
Sorry.
Alison.
Thank you.
Thank you. All those in favour, all those against, carried. And that takes us to the annual plan report. Performance report and tray, and we've already had a question from the mayor, or statement.
No, there is a question coming.
Right, there's a question coming. Shall we go straight to that?
Yeah, if I can, please. So you just note that the service requesters start to get an entry point meeting, public meetings. But on page 29, Trey, you'll see the A, B, C, D, F, and G. Those amounts, they're part of the deficit. Every time we see that now, does that then become part of the debt? That is the only place that the deficit goes, or can a deficit go anywhere other than debt?
Through you, Mr. Chair, that is becoming part of our debt. Three Waters is becoming part of our debt.
Can it go anywhere else? Just so that when I start following it, every single time, that's debt.
Every time it will be debt.
Every time it's debt. Thank you.
It could come out of our reserves or things like that, but currently it's being debt funded.
Thank you. Yep.
Yeah. So just through you, Mr. Chair, just be aware. These are costs that you see, sure, but what Sharon's dealing with when she's talking about cash flow and debt is just simply the difference between money coming in and money going out. And so, whilst the deficit is calculated at the end of the year and says this is what it on paper says, Sharon's dealing with that problem on a monthly basis. Has she got enough money? And because we're not breaking investments for it, if she hasn't got the money, then she needs to get debt for it. So there's not necessarily a one-to-one relationship. It's purely month-by-month basis. Is the revenue there necessary to support payments? And if not, then she draws down debt.
Yeah, so it just flows on from Councillor Catherwood's for some months now been asking, the 7.5 million for the hub. I thought the rest of the debt was Three Waters. No, it's not. So, and I know that I too didn't correlate that until recent times. So I think just we've got to be aware, team, that every time we see that, know the consequences.
Trey, do you want to present anything?
Not for the management accounts, if anyone has any more questions for those.
Joel.
Trade G, Three Waters employee costs of 1.25 for the 6 months were unbudgeted. How did we miss not budgeting for that?
Mr. Chairman, easy. We mentioned it last night at yesterday afternoon at the Rural Water Scheme committees. It's simply the transition costs when we bring the staff in-house. So we would have budgeted for contract costs for our previous contractor, right? And so that's sitting in budget, but bringing all the staff in-house, recruiting them, all the costs for recruitment, the increased staff, because we've got 2 or 3 times more staff than what the contractor had. all those costs that we are now incurring, you're only measuring it against a budget that was based on the original contract for last year's budget and this year's budget. And that's what we mean by unbudgeted. Simply saying the only time that we're catching up on the budget is this long-term plan budget, where we are correctly reflecting all the costs of staff, including all 3 water staff. And they are now in there, which is why you'll see the cost of staffing's moved from, was it 9 mil to 12 mil, or was it, which way is it? It's something like that. So there's a significant increase in budgeted staff costs because of the staff increases associated with 3 waters in the house.
It's in the LTP.
Yes, we've caught it back up in the LTP, Mr. Chair. Simon?
To the Chair, can I just ask a question, page 27, just this is for my clarification. So the surplus for the year is currently looking at a deficit of minus 9,225,000 is against a small surplus of 770.
What?
That was the
Oh,
deficit from last year,
this last year.
No.
the 2023.
Yep, so I'll just take, yeah.
So at the moment, it's 671.
Yep, at the moment, so why don't we run a revised budget? It always gets compared back to the budget that was set in the annual plan.
Well, one of the reasons might be that you can revise budgets, but you can't revise funding. So, you set the rates on a particular budget.
Yeah, correct, yeah, but it shows where we're actually tracking, because I'm not sure, like, at the moment, as a farmer, you're flat out doing that all the time at the moment. You've got constantly changing income and rising expenditure, so I've got to revise a budget every month. We do our accounts. I can't quite understand why we don't see that presented at council.
I suspect what you're suggesting is a revised forecast.
Revised, yes, like same thing. No, it should be in that column.
Yep.
Being measured against the actual.
You can ask? Sure.
Through you, Mr. Chair, we are working on forecasting better to be able to provide that as well. But for the annual report, we have to report against this because we can't reset our rates and things like that.
I know that.
So
I know that.
we can reforecast, and we are working on doing that
Yeah,
with
but
new systems.
These questions are being asked about where the debt's going, and clearly, as that income is down and the expenses is up, that's got to be borrowed. But it's just useful to know just right where we're tracking each and every month.
Yeah, 100% right, Simon. And through the system changes, I've been talking with Sharon and her predecessor about the opportunities to develop better reporting in this space, because I think it is essential that elected members are able to get a forecast for where the end of the year is. It's a question I've often asked for a meeting of Sharon. So I think that's an essential piece of work that needs to get there, and the technology is just starting to get to that stage. But
Mr.
obviously
Chairman,
the last year's been a challenging year with a lot of
But
stuff.
there's a simple answer, right? Because you're correct. You would think that normal business practice is that you get good financial reporting, including forecasting. The simple answer as to why we haven't been forecasting for you up to this point is because we didn't have a clue what the actual cost of the Three Waters operations in-house was going to be. And we needed to wait to see the 6 to 7 month point to actually get our first understanding of what those costs were going to be. We discussed it yesterday at the Rural Water Scheme along those lines too. We were new. I've said to council, we don't know and can't forecast the costs of the Three Waters ops and bringing it in-house. This year, when we started in July the 1st, I said we would produce to you the information after the 6 month point, because it's the first time we can start looking at forecasting. And you are correct. We should be able to have an idea now of what the forecast will be for the end of the year. But up to this point, we couldn't because we didn't have the knowledge and the information. That's the simple answer to this year. Normal business practice would be you'd expect to be testing variances against budget and getting an idea of forecast associated with But to date, the biggest component of the deficit and the problem, the over expenditure this year is the Three Waters, and we didn't know what that cost was going to be.
Brian,
No, sorry, scratching.
scratching your head. It's hard to tell sometimes. John?
Yeah, that was always the case and understand that, Steve. But have we got assurances moving forward now, like, and I agree with councillor McAtee, like, I presume the council have paid GST quarterly and so forth? Monthly, yep, right. So, if you're not aligning your GST payments with income and expenditure and actuals and budgeted, can we not be getting those reports where we're actually tracking? Like, Simon's doing it on the farm monthly, I do it 2 monthly, because we're on 2 monthly GST, but we have cash reports that tells you what's actually going on. And it's there in front here. Then we can see where all the money's going, where all these blowouts are.
You can see that, that's in front of us now.
Yes, but no, yeah, but it's taken us this period to get it. Can we not see it more regularly as we track?
This is on our agenda every meeting.
Yeah, so you do get all the financials. The question was, shouldn't we know what what we're going to be, what's going to be looking like at the end of the year? That's the issue. We do produce, we've got the information. You can see it every time in these management reports. They get reported to council. But the real issue was, why can't you forecast so we know what we're up for in the year? And that's the explanation. We're expecting to be able to forecast now. We've figured out what the logic, the cost, the normal recurring cost is for Three Waters, and we should be able to forecast what that deficit will be. And that's once Sharon and the team can sort out the long-term plan and get the budgets out for consultation, we get to business as usual, and we should start using the information we have got, which we asked for. We have now got the 6 months bit, and start thinking about that.
So I was talking, like, maybe 1 July this year, we'll be back up.
No, Sharon's already looking now. She's very seriously got to monitor the cash flow, because we talked before about the debt cap and how much debt we can keep going for without breaching it this year. This is, I mentioned to you when we talked about those discussions. That's a very real monitoring live situation. That's what's concerning her and what she's looking at really carefully now. But in business as usual stuff, we've got the 6 monthly information, and business as usual stuff means that we can start forecasting now what things are going to be looking like for the end of the year.
Brian?
Sharon, do you have the month that the first genuine prospect that we could reach? What is it?
Sorry.
Which month is the first possibility that we could reach?
Through you, Mr. Chair. We actually don't know. We actually don't know. It depends. That's why we've asked for all contracts to be forecast for us contract payments for February, March, April, May, June. We want them all so that we can look at what's coming in, because we have rates months of February and May, and that's what we're trying to do between now and the end of the year, is look at how it goes.
Yeah.
But based on our LTP budgets, we're looking at it was year 4, but you just need one big surprise you don't know about that year, so that's why we're trying to prepare to see where we're looking between now and the end of June.
So it's one thing to say, but do we have a contingency if it does happen? No.
Well, the contingency, Mr. Chair,
It can't happen.
if
It can't happen. The contingency would be to take money out of our investment.
or source funds at a higher rate from somewhere else.
Yeah.
Because the issue with the breach, apart from it happens and you report it, is obviously you don't get any more funding from LGFA.
You have to repay the funding that you have. That's the biggest issue.
Tonight you just touched on something then, Sharon. You take it out of investment, and yet a lot of them are spoken for as such. What part of the investment will we? Do you just take it out of whatever investment part falls due, or do we go to we're heading into uncharted territory here. I'm just unsure how that would work. Are we able to just take it out the investment and say, hey, that's from one of the areas that we're allowed to take it from, when there are criteria for, this fund is for that, the forestry fund?
Through you, Mr. Chair, the plan is not to take it out.
Yeah.
But if we needed it, we would just have to take it out.
And in that instance, Mr. Chairman, it's effectively an internal bank transaction.
Yeah.
Because we're just shifting it from an investment to us loaning ourselves the money.
Yeah, but then it doesn't go back. So like if, someone could say, hey, that's part of that was the forestry account. None of that was meant to be touched out of the forestry account or the Sidell account or any of those other tagged ones. I'm just trying to get in my head because we're heading into a
No,
territory.
you don't have to worry about that, Your Worship, because we already have internal bank calculations that have all those things. It's just on the record or on the paper how things are accounted for. It doesn't change whether Sidell or let's say forestry or whatever, let's say reserve accounts, a particular reserve account, it doesn't matter whether it's sitting in investment or whether it's sitting in internal bank, it's still a full reserve balance, and that's all it is.
John?
So is there a risk we might breach this financial year?
Through you, Mr. Chair, it's possible if there's costs that we're not aware of, but we don't believe we will. And it's also the timing of those costs when a rates income comes in as well. It's like if they're predicting to spend a lot of money in a month where we don't have any income, then we're going to have to get that money to pay for it from somewhere. But no, we shouldn't.
But it is fair to say.
And really, that's the next month, because at the end of this month, we're February now, aren't we? At the end of this month, you get a chunk of money in, so.
But it's fair to say
That'll get
that
us through to June.
Sharon has never had to be looking at it so closely on an almost day-by-day basis to make sure that we don't have surprises, because it wasn't an issue. The cap was an issue previously.
We're on the cliff edge, right?
Yes, I mean, everything changes by budget sense and from the cap sense on July the 1st. Because on July the 1st,
This next 5 months.
the rates have gone up
That's why I asked this financial year.
and it automatically increases anyway, right? So the cap increases. So the choke point, the problem point is where we are, making sure we can just survive till July.
I don't know, is it? Ken, is that a question?
Oh, no, it'll come up later on.
Okay.
It'll be later on.
Later on?
Yeah.
Yep.
Steve?
I just want to say that, I've talked about our deficits at many of these meetings. You're now going into the critical stage of the LTP, and that's the place to fix the challenges that we've faced over the last 3 years. Right. So that's nothing else on the financials, the non-financial part of Trey's report. You want to say something?
I'm just happy to take that as read. Answer any questions.
No questions on that.
Just a couple of things then based on the Mayor's questions.
Yes.
Linda's team is, looking at the allocation of the resources to get, at least from the Three Waters perspective, people assigned to the callbacks. So that should be improving the percentages on that side of things. Definitely got that ability to make a difference there. And I think the other thing, Jules might update too, is that in this LTP, we were looking to try and tidy up, clarify, or make better the measurements themselves in the LTP, which you'll see as it comes through, so that we can get clarity and ease of measurement, and that we're actually measuring the right things. Because Trey's just stuck with the problem of this is what we set, and then how do you measure it against it, and then this is what it's displaying, as opposed to the ability through the LTP to, are we actually measuring correctly? What are we measuring, and all that sort of thing. So we're looking to improve that side of it.
And it also highlights the offer for 3 months extension to the LTP if we need to raise the rates to be able to raise the limit, to be able to access that in the next 3 months. The option of waiting another 3 months doesn't exist in this council. We have to remember that moving forward. It wasn't an option.
Absolutely. For most councils, I think you'll find that's the case. Can I have mover and a seconder, please?
Yep.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Bruce B. Those in favour? Those against? Carried. Thank you, Troy. That takes us to what appears to be our new normal, a whole bunch of more KPIs. And I'll get to it eventually. 42, Linda, welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Normally Kieran would be here presenting this, but he stepped down from his role and his replacement starts next month. So I am happy to take questions from you. I do note that we've had improvement in results, BACTO for this reporting period, and also some improvements in the rural, BACTO and protozoal compliance, and also a significant I guess milestone for us was lifting the boil water notice on Pururoa just after Christmas that had been in place for almost a year. Happy to take any questions.
Sure.
Probably sounds a silly question, but to me, the monitoring points where the things are being taken to be shifted downstream, isn't supposed to be compliant coming out? So why are we having to shift where we've actually taken the monitoring?
So is that the Tichy Road to Mallard Drive? So we do measure when what the levels are when they're leaving the plant, but also it's quite a big distribution network. And with the Tichy Road sample point was right at the far end of the network where it was going nowhere, which meant naturally the coagulants would be sitting there, so getting high readings. We've moved it to a different point in the retic, which has definitely made an improvement. And it's probably more representative of the level than it being at the end of the line.
Thank you.
Brian.
Yeah, thank you. Can we please get another column with the finish date? Look, we've got everything coming out.
Yep.
And this is what we're going to do in September, so that we can start, as the government's saying, to this particular one, and then we start putting timelines to it, because we can see the wheres and whys, can't see the how do we fix it. And then it's just a boomer layperson thing. On page 46, number G, UV non-compliance. The UV dose rate was not maintained. I thought a UV was a light, not a dose rate. So therefore, if the light's going, it's getting UV. How do you? A UV isn't a dose; it's just a light.
It is, I guess, the terminology we use is dose. But
So the light went off.
Yes, could be the labs, or they could have been not clean enough.
Oh, so there could still be some UV, but not
the
enough.
level required.
No. Thank you. Oh, and can we get that other column?
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you.
No problem.
John.
Thank you, and I'll follow your worship comments and I'll bring this up later on today in the service delivery as well, but particularly the couple of schemes that I preside over. With Noah Flatley, it says commissioning a UV monitor. That was ordered and installed in July last winter, and which is still not working. Is that what that tells you?
If that's what the report says, that might mean it hasn't been fully commissioned.
Yeah, I suppose it's sort of
follow up.
is it possible, and it's a great report, is it possible to deliver a report that says these are the treatment plants that are under a drinking water boil water notice, these are the issues we know about, and this is how we're going to fix them in what time frame? Is that something that we can do?
Yes.
Just because it's
more of a summary, you mean?
It lets me know where we're at. That's a little bit frustrating to read that we're commissioning a UV monitor that was ordered, that was put in July, and it's still not commissioned, still not working. We're still on a boil water notice. So I need some sort of a process where I can follow. I know that there's an end, there's light at the end of the tunnel, and how we're going to get there. We know what the problem is. We all know what the problem is. How are we going to fix the problem, and how long is this going to take? It's pretty much like it's just. It seems. I mean, we've got 0 compliant days out of 30, 0 compliant days out of 31. We've been on a board with us now for nearly a year, and we've spent a vast sum of money on a treatment plant, and so it's really frustrating. So I'd like to see a process that we can follow where this is going to be compliant.
Okay. Take that point. Just on the Moa Flat plant and also North Bruce, we've had Ian Rabbits doing work or putting a plan together for the team. So that plan was sent out to us last week. So we've got some actions to take. Nothing about equipment at this point. It's all about dosing and how we actually manage the plant. And so the team have commenced the recommendations in his report. And if we get to a point where we're doing what he's recommended, then it may mean some potential upgrades. But we need to operate the plant as he's instructed. First.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair. At what point, percentage-wise, does it become compliant or non-compliant? Because I see, like 97% is compliant and 90 isn't, and that can be a matter of just one day out of a month. So is there a percentage?
I'm not sure of that level. There are some really strict rules around that compliance, and you only have to have one failure and you're actually done for the year almost.
I can clarify that, it has to be more than 95%. That's why when it's over 95%, it's compliant. So if it's under 95, it's non-compliant. We're back to it.
Okay.
Sure.
Linda, Kakapoa Township, I see like they're in the red zone, but I see in the improvement work. So is there an expectation that with that work that you clarify that will resolve that issue for those residents down there?
Yes.
Well, we've lifted the notice.
Yeah, but I see there's been an installation of a new clarifier was installed and commissioned in December. So moving forward, we should see so many reads for Kakapoa, should we?
Correct. It's fully compliant now.
Yeah.
Ben?
When we get Wahola through on the new pipeline, how's that going to affect the testing, et cetera, for North Bruce? We haven't got a township, et cetera, involved.
There'll be no change to where we have the test points.
Yep. But most of that issue is coming from Duck Road, isn't it? Mallard Drive.
We've had a few other points, Cemetery Road, I can't remember the other names, but there's been a few odd results. Mallard Drive is looking pretty good. It's been mainly compliant. In fact, we were hoping that we could lift the rest of the scheme and leave Waihola on the aluminium advisory, but because we've had those other random results, we weren't able to do that.
All right, can I move on second to things? Alison, Michelle. Alison's gone. And Bruce V. All those in favour? All those against? Carried. And this takes us to another Linda report, the Three Waters Operation 6 months report.
So is this the financial outcomes, I guess, up to December that we promised that we would have for this meeting? I'm sure there'll be some questions, so I'm happy to hear those.
Can I start with the income line? Is that rates? It's mostly rates, so water meters. Yeah. Okay, cool. John?
Well, thank you. I'll work my way through from the biggest to the smallest. Internal others, 2.2 million at the bottom, fourth from the bottom.
I'll answer that through you, Your Worship. Your Worship, Mr. Chair. Internal others is the overheads from all other parts of the council business. So it's all the costs of computers and the building and staff like myself that pass through to other departments that don't have an end user. And that's done, there's a model that filters down like a waterfall to all end users of the organisation.
Motor vehicle insurance is only $998. Is that correct? How do you get insurance through? I'd like to know.
That will also be correct, and it probably should be zero to be fair, because that comes through a motor vehicle unit, which comes out like an overhead.
Okay, so that's.
Yeah, there's a fleet business unit that
Yeah.
goes in and out as an internal lease.
And the cafeteria expenses, are we expecting that to be there every year, or is that just a one-off we set up and started? It's not a big figure, but there's a perception out there if we're looking at rates rises that we're looking at, and people are buying coffees for them. It just doesn't look, that's all.
Cafeteria expenses will be us providing tins of coffee and budget biscuits to Crown Street.
They've only just got biscuits from January, so there's no biscuits reflected in those dollars. That is tea, coffee. So that's a statutory obligation to provide tea, coffee and milk to staff and sugar.
Thank you.
Simon?
Yes, through the chair, just coming back to John's first question on that internal others. So yeah, that 2.2 million, various staff, etc. So does that mean that that's offset elsewhere in the council accounts? Is it a credit in the rest of the system?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair. That's how the activities like finance and CS department, that's how they're funded. They're not rate funded as such. They're funded through an internal overhead that filters to here and becomes rate funded. So they form part of water rates, part of the UAGC, part of the, because there's no specific end user for what certain departments do. It's based on numbers of people, how many computers they have, where they sit.
Yeah, but your salaries and the building costs and everything will be budgeted for each year.
Yes.
Yeah, so it's an off, so that'll be offset somewhere else in the accounts. Yeah, so it'll be a credit in the accounts.
Always balances to zero.
Yes.
Always balances to zero. Brian?
Yeah, Sharon and I went through this because there was a heap of pink yesterday. And the one thing I took out of it was that the figures are heady, and there's new games in town like taking deficits across and the inevitable consequence. But I'm starting to, my fear has been that we're spending a whole lot of money and we're not getting the outcomes. And yeah, I look at that and then we are ticking some. So I sort of see this point as the light at the end of the tunnel. It'll better bloody start shining a bit brighter, but the light is at the end of the tunnel, and we've just got to push through this dark period, because the LTP especially is going to be hard going when we go out with this reality of these figures. But at least we can then back it up by saying, well, Waihola comes on tap next month. Keka Point did get ticked off last week. Greenfield's coming at Christmas time. So it's a heady game at the moment, but when you put the figures and the outcomes and the crossed fingers, it's a heady game at the moment, but we're still going to hold on, because if we spend the money, and this is the thing on it, if we spend the money, those red lines go away, and at least we're solved. If those red lines don't go away, it's going to be even more, it's going to be impossible.
Well, that's where I'm asking for that report, so we can see when those red lines are going to disappear.
Yeah.
We can see it transition, because I'm with, I don't want to jump in, but that's the theme for me today. Like, we've spent a vast sum of money, and I'm hoping we're at the bottom and we're going to start seeing some rises, because tomorrow there'll be another email with, 7 bore water notices and aluminium notices, and there's 5 abatement notices. There's a lot of stuff that's still got to be dealt with. So I'd like to see a plan for getting there, because at the moment we sort of spend a lot and it hasn't quite sort of come to fruition for us. So,
And especially with the political arm as we go into the LTP and the soapboxes and the like, we've got to start having the end game story for the red lines, or we're sitting there doing a goldfish impersonation.
Thanks for some interesting challenges in storytelling to the community. And one of the notes that I wrote when I looked at this report is that I think we need to be clear in what we plan to do and what we did of what we planned to do in terms of our original budget. And then we need to deal with what we didn't plan for, and that's the contract failure and the changes that led us to bring all that in-house and the costs of that. And then we need to also, I think there's a third category, which is the consequence of new compliance and our not expecting to have that aluminium problem and these protozoa problems and things that suddenly new compliance has put on that. I think there's, my view from what I've picked up from here is that there's three big chunks of that somehow we need to communicate business as usual prior to all of these changes was this, and we've either done everything or we haven't done everything there. Then we've added this and we've funded this. Is that quite a storytelling thing? And then there's your part of the story, which is getting to the end point. So there's this financial story for this financial year for the annual report. There's getting to the end point, and then there's our future, which is the LTP. So it's quite a complex package of stuff to get through the community, I think.
And also I was wondering with, especially with Richard coming, and in light of our discussions last week, if we could just get a picture of all of us today, just so that we're one big family carrying this on. Yeah. Public enemy number one just wants a big kumbaya photo.
Right, we'll move in second. Question?
When is the time that we are pushing government for the help? Because our spending can't go on forever. When is that time that we step up and start, the political side of, hey, come on.
So
where are the subsidies for our communities?
we discussed it, through Mr. Chairman, we discussed that a little bit yesterday at the rural water schemes, where a similar question was asked about, what's our forecasting and why aren't we able to include subsidies or other bits and pieces in there. I said that this long-term plan we're really stuck with certainly the first 3 years is going to be probably we're carrying the can, and after that, who knows? But you can't forecast it. And what I said to the committees, I've said it to people, I've said it to you. There have been various statements made, as worships make statements, I make statements, all about the unsustainable nature of going it alone with Three Waters, and the advocacy to the government, advocacy to our MPs, advocacy to any interest groups like Fed Farmers or anything like that can start today, can start yesterday, because the message is the same, isn't it? The plan and what we're showing is the unsustainable nature of what we're left with as a result of the legislative change and the change in government. And we've got to get in front of people to start looking at what other solutions, because nobody's given us concrete solutions yet. They're talking about developing them, and we need to be in boots and all with how those are developed. But as worship will say and comment also, the political environment's changed too in terms of how much influence do we have and how much influence can we have.
If I can add to that, Michelle, we haven't really had an opportunity we're doing bigger all in the background because we're going on the dark, but the CEOs are probably getting more traction than the political forum because of the ruptured nature of the relationships, I'll say that, or it's a reality. So the CEOs are talking, and hopefully the CEOs of both zones 5 and 6 there's slight gossamer hopes of it there. From us here at the moment, the toolbox that we've been offered, the 3 months extension, that's of no use. The giving additional access to debt, thanks very much, but no thanks. And then the other one is the city deals. And the city deals have actually, we were quite divisive as a group before it started. It's actually pulled it further apart because instead of coming together to discuss, you're looking over your shoulder. And so what are we doing? Well, we haven't been given any tools to do anything with, but there is, it's pathetic at the moment, it's absolutely pathetic.
Right, moving second this time. Thank you, Michelle. And seconded, John. Those in favour? Those against, carried.
Yes, Mr Chair.
That takes us to page 56, the audit monitoring report. Sharon?
Thank you, Mr Chair. No, just to say that there has been no update to this since the last meeting.
Can I have a movement seconded to receive the report? Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Bruce G. Those in favour, those against, carried. Takes to items, page 61, and the Treasury Manager's report. Greg's going to find his way to the microphone.
Standing ovation for Greg. Outstanding month, Greg. Our saviour.
He's not here.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and morning, everybody. Yes, so we had a couple of positive results last 2 months, November, December. We had a 1.2 million unrealised gain in November and 801k unrealised gain in December, as well as distributions reinvested of 174k in December. So that's brought our year-to-date return up to 8.17% now. And yes, we've basically, the gains we've made the last couple of months have put us back to where we were, 31.1 million. That's, yeah, the value we had as at January 22. So we've basically gained what we've lost in the last few months, which supports that concept of staying in it for the long term. With the borrowings, we had an additional 12 million borrowed in December. So that puts our current borrowings at 98.8 million. And you'll see a few pages over on page 68. We've got that summary again updated with all the different types of borrowings, and we've got a total average interest rate of 5.84% at the moment. The only other thing I was going to mention is we've just added that emerging issue there at the bottom about the cash flow monitoring debt limits being an emerging issue, which we discussed about earlier. Yeah, happy to take any questions or discussion.
John.
Thank you. You look quite happy with yourself, and so you should, because that's very good. The first part of the report's very encouraging, isn't it? I got really interested in that page 68, because that's something we've been sort of asking for a little while, and that sort of spins my wheels a little bit. So a couple of questions. There's one there about third the way up from the bottom, it's 3.9%. It looks like a bit of a sort of it stands out for being so low amongst the rest. So that was just a timing thing that the interest rates were there at the time, or it's about 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yes, okay.
So eight up from the bottom.
Yep. Yes.
3.9%. This looks a bit strange.
I'll have to check what date that borrowing was taken out.
Okay, cool. So just when we look at that, we look at the top one is coming off in a fortnight's time, the 16th of February one.
Yes, maturity date. Yep.
So if we scroll down to page 78, where it's got the borrowing rates going forward, what's the sort of thought process? Or how do we decide what the term's going to be for that one as it revolves off? Just using that as an example. As it drops off, what's the thought process behind what rate we're going to look at and what term? It's a shitty question, isn't it?
Through you, Mr Chair. On page 62, as part of the dashboard, there's a graph at the bottom, on the bottom right.
The decimal one.
There's red lines on there saying what kind of borrowing we can have,
yeah,
and the limits of that. So the borrowing is decided. We asked Miles, who's actually going to speak to us in a wee bit. We asked Miles for the best recommendation of how to stay within that and get the best bang for our buck. So some of those higher ones that are at the top of that list rolling off shortly, they would have been shorter term.
Yes.
And that 3.9 would have been longer term. So yeah, that's how we the rates at the time we need to borrow the money. It's like, how do we structure this? Is it long? Is it short? Can it be this kind? Can it be that kind? To stay within our parameters that are set in our treasury management policy, investment liability management policy.
No, it's just really interesting, actually.
Yeah, just again on that, so what are we allowed to borrow short? It's in 3 months or 5, what percentage of total loans?
Through you, Mr. Chair, off the top of my head, I don't know that. It's in the policy though, and I was looking at it this morning, but I can't.
Because I'd be wondering what would be going on at the moment, at all.
So we've got to have fixed rate borrowing over 40 million in the next 2 years.
Yeah.
For example, that's what that graph is showing. And we're right on that limit. And with an expectation of interest rates falling, for example, then you're going to want to be sitting the fixed portion. This is all about fixed versus floating. The fixed portion is because a lot of our debt we borrow on a floating rate and then get a swap to fix it.
Yeah.
And it's not the borrowing in the first place. It's the swap transactions and whether we take them short and long and all of that.
Yeah.
But we've got to be fixed. In this case, $40 million in the next 2 years, and then that line goes down.
Yeah. So
So it's all about strategy and risk, about what we think interest rates are doing.
Well, they're not going to rise.
They're not going to rise.
I'll come out and say it.
You heard it here first.
But it is very important, I know.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, sort of new world thinking, so I just want to test Sharon, so, and I know it's semantics because it's coming out the same kitty, but if hypothetically in the case that we just touch and breach a debt maximum, and this is probably more gutless political messaging that's more palatable, right there in that investment there is an actual. Traditionally we've waited 12 months and we've had the square up and the divvy up, but that 1 point whatever million is there. Is there the ability to, we've breached our debt and we're accessing the funds from the interest occurred to date? Just to can we take that money before the 12 months?
Yes, you can take that money at any time. But you can only spend it once.
Yeah, it was just a messaging one that is it tidier doing it from something we actually have to something we actually borrow. It's semantics because it comes out of just so we can do it, right? Yeah. Could be a line of thought.
Right. No more discussion on the debt and investment report.
Good report, though. Very good.
Yeah. It's nice to see those investments going back up. Right, mover and seconder, please. Thank you, Bruce B and John. Those in favour?
Aye.
Those against? Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 4, cyber security. We go to that item and we will move. Do I move that it goes in committee?
Yes, so there is a resolution, because you've got to follow the right things.
Yes.
Did we pass it, everybody?
Yes,
Yeah.
So that's the resolution, because you've got to do it right.
So I need a motion to
That
receive.
needs to be, to change in why, and then you can do that.
So I can have a motion to receive the report.
Yes.
This is a cyber security report. Thank you, Michelle. Thank you, Brian. Those in favour? Carried. And then we'll have a motion as tabled, which is a replacement for the reasons to go public excluded, with the addition of adding cyber security item to what was originally in the agenda. We have a mover to go in committee. Thank you, Ken. And seconded, Alison. Thank you. Those in favour? Those against? carried. We are now in public excluded.
And just be aware,